89.9 in Lusaka and the surrounding areas. Remember, we are also live on our partner radio stations. We are live in Chingola, covering the rest with FM radio on 90.1 FM. And also live in Luapula province. We are live on Tuta FM, that is in Mansa. Also live in Muchinga on Muchinga Radio. And remember, it's 88.1. Also live in Kabwe, Central Province. We are covered on Spice FM radio on 91.1, covering Central Province. And I mentioned here in Lusaka and the surrounding areas, 89.9. And on Web FM radio as well in Mazabuka, covering Southern Province on 98.7. We are delighted to be back. And remember, we are also live on our Facebook page, and that's 5FM Radio Zambia. Later on, I'll give you an opportunity as listeners to call in and interact with our guest. And is Honourable Stephen Kampyongo, who is a Member of Parliament for Shiwang'andu and former Cabinet Minister. Welcome to the program, and good to see you, Honourable.
It's a pleasure to be back here, Comrade Zach, and to our dear listeners, a very good morning to them, wherever they are listening, wherever they've tuned from, and hope to have a very interesting discourse with you.
Indeed. And of course, quite a number of issues that we'll be looking at. We'll look at the energy sector, most importantly, but also the cost of living is one of the issues at hand. But let's start with Parliament. I know that the President made appointments to the Judicial Complaints Commission, and of course, they were due for ratification. Parliament is back in session, and you made ratifications yesterday. Briefly tell us how that went.
Indeed, as per procedure, there are certain institutional office bearers that require by Parliament when appointments are made by the President. And so the one we are referring to was a report to scrutinize and ratify the appointments of 3 individuals.
Right.
There was Mr. Katongo and Madam E-voucher.
Yes.
Were appointed to serve as members of the Judicial Complaints Commission. And then there was Mr. Jack Kalala, I think, appointed to be part of the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Right.
And so those were the 3 names that were forwarded to Parliament for ratification. And so the committee which was selected, because normally the Speaker would appoint a select committee of members to sit and scrutinize those appointments on behalf of Parliament, and then they generate a report, which report is then brought on the floor through the chairperson of a particular select committee. And in that case, Honourable Mng'andu was chairing the select committee, moved a motion to have those 3 individuals ratified. And the ratifications were done. I think the report was successful. The report was adopted. And indeed, the 3 legal practitioners, the 2 legal practitioners, Mr. E-voucher and Mr. Kefas Katongo, were found to be suitable and eminently qualified. And I think the emphasis from members was just that, the JCC is a very important institution. It's a institution given the responsibility of ensuring that those distinguished men and women of the bench and the judiciary serve their citizens within their code of ethics. As you know, they are human beings,
Yes.
and human beings are prone to make mistakes. Some mistakes would be deliberate, and some mistakes could be, made in line of their duty. So this is the institution which receives complaints about judges and their conduct, hear them, and then decide on what to do. So it's a very important institution because it has to create confidence also in those men and women who serve and different high courts. Yeah, but it's also critical that these people are protected because, you know, the nature of their work. Sometimes they would try things that will go in that might not go in favor of Mr. Zaki. And Mr. Zaki will just think, you know, out of that, he may run to the JCC to go and launch a complaint against these distinguished men and women. And so it's important that they're also protected against frivolous complaints that people may just want to take there as a way of settling scores. And so for me, in my view, going forward, maybe doing the reforms, I would like to see reforms which will still bring in Parliament, because you can't just ratify, participate in ratifying appointments without participating in the disappointment.
Right.
And so, in my view, we may need to have a mechanism where a report that comes from the JCC is then sent to the Parliament. That this person who ratified has been found wanting, and therefore there is a recommendation to for this person to vacate the office. So those are reforms that might be very helpful and may in the institutions. And further, just to say that the other than the Parliament would want to also see those retired people from the bench, like retired judges, you know, justices, who at least have had a feel of what it feels to, you know, to adjudicate on cases, you know, to form part. For me, it would be good to tap into the wisdom of those that could have been on the bench, because they know it. Not that those that are being appointed from the who are members of LAS may not do a good job, but it would be an added advantage to also tap into that pool. There are so many retired judges who are still useful and still active, and can make a big difference in assessing the colleagues who could be found wanting, and probably give them a much fairer hearing. With the other one, of course, it's just nothing personal against Mr. Kalala, but look, he was before Parliament not too long ago. I think it must have been last year, when his name came for ratification as a board member of the Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation, ZNBC, and he then became chairperson there. So the report should have also looked at why he moved from that institution. What was the reason? So that even as you are ratifying for another assignment, you are able to look back. Was it wrong that maybe we ratified him to go and save ZNBC board? What were the reasons? So that if indeed it's something that involved misconduct, how does it impact on the new institution he is going to serve? So in scrutinizing, we must be seen to also be thorough, you know. So those are just a few comments that I would like to make.
So you don't get that opportunity in Parliament to further interrogate such a case?
No, when the committee comes with a report, what you do is then debate the report. And yesterday, I think you must have seen me raising a concern with the presiding officer, because we thought we still had time, and I was among those that had indicated on wanting to make comments on the report. But then debate was felt was prematurely curtailed, and I raised that, and of course the speaker ruled that we needed to proceed, and so that's what happened. But I mean, we're free to make comments, because these are public institutions, and the individuals appointed subject to public debate.
True. Let's move now. I mean, the country, as it stands, it's grappling with the energy crisis, especially electricity crisis. You, a former cabinet minister, you understand most of these things. And what has come out strongly is that Zambia always gets to have options in as far as where to import electricity from. But the option that has always been relied upon has always been Mozambique. But we understand that it's difficult now to get to import electricity from Mozambique because the previous regime to which you were a part of left a huge debt on that score. And it's becoming difficult for this government to do such business as to continue doing business of that nature. What is really a situation here with regards electricity crisis? I know that drought has prominently come out to be the reason why, but how come as a country we've not tapped into alternative energy?
Thank you so much, Mr. Zach. And I remember coming here to discuss these matters sometime last year, I think.
Yes.
When you were being assured, I'm sure we shall touch on the issue of fuel.
Yes.
And we were being assured that once the Tazama pipeline was cleaned up and finished products started coming through Tazama pipeline,
fuel price was going to be reduced by 50%. Yes.
I disputed that.
Yes.
But of course, people want to think we just political about things, message, even if it's coming from a politician. So coming to your issue of it's been an issue we have been dealing with in the past. Most of our electricity is hydro, meaning it's generated from the water sources. And so you do recall that I think by the time we were forming government, we were only sitting with about 1,000, between 1,500 to 1,800 megawatts of power. And the demand kept on increasing because once you are attracting investment, you are opening new mines, it means then you will have to double or to increase power generation because the demand will consequently increase.
Yeah.
And so there were projects that were undertaken during our time, and I think those of our colleagues in the energy sector were giving down the breakdown of the gradual increase in terms of megawatts. We had some facilitated in Teji, Kafiwe Gorge Lower, and also in trying to diversify. Remember, Mamba Cordials came on board, and so in the end, by the time we were leaving government, we were already sitting with more than 3,000 megawatts of power plus that was then able to meet the demand. Now, we have had these weather patterns that due to the climate change that have had an impact. You remember before 2015, going to 2016, we had another crisis. And that's where that issue raised of importing power from
Mozambique came in, yes.
Yeah, what probably happened, or what did happen then was, it was not power that was being generated by Mozambique. There was a ship that docked in Mozambique, and because of the SADC, that was the best place where the ship docked, and we were able to get then to import power from that ship to cushion, to ensure that the economy didn't ground to a halt, or to ensure that at least production continued in the midst of that drought we had.
Yes.
Yeah, but you remember, you see, what goes round comes round. You remember the conversations which were there from our colleagues in the opposition then.
Yes.
And it was attributed, the drought, the power deficit was attributed to poor leadership, simply. So the explanations that were being given then, both by our engineers and everybody, were ignored. But I've always said, running a country with tariffs embedded in there, which we could not be adjusted, even in the midst of the crisis.
Yeah.
So we were importing power even as a cost of at least more than, if I can't remember exactly the figures, but even above 15 cents per kilowatt. And that power was in some cases being supplied to our consumers, including both domestic and industrial consumers, for at least less than 10 cents per kilowatt. It was a difficult decision to make, but government must be responsible for
The difference.
its people.
Yeah.
And obviously the difference had to be found somewhere. And now you remember that, from that period of the partial drought, we then had another one between 2016 and 2020.
Yes.
And that was even compounded by the COVID-19. So meaning it became difficult for government to generate revenue, which revenue was going to cover the repayment of the debt. I do recall that we were attending one SADC meeting. The former head of state engaged his counterpart, who is still the current president of Mozambique. And those issues were raised to say, look, the challenge that we have faced is this. And there were conversations to try and reschedule the debt. Just like Zach, you could be owing the next person, and then probably you get sick and your business doesn't perform as you projected. You would go back and say, look, I have faced this challenge. Can we agree that when things get better, we can then look at the repayment plan?
Yeah.
This is what the nation is even doing on the other issues of debt restructuring.
Yes.
It was not that we didn't just want to settle some of those obligations, but the circumstances. COVID-19, you remember,
Yes.
there was even call that let's close the nation, let's shut down everything in the nation. But we realized that, in as much as we were dealing with something that we had never dealt with, COVID-19, which the country was instilled fear in people. And so it also affected the revenue collection into the revenue basket of the nation. So these are the sincere conversations. And we would want even the Minister of Finance to be sincere in these conversations than to just to lessen a portion in blame, because every government undertakes certain things. I mean, he just came to Parliament last week with supplementary expenditure, supplementary estimate.
Yeah.
And with it, he came with a borrowing plan, which is being amended as well. So meaning they too are equal borrowing. So that's what I can say about that. Now, here we are again.
Similar situation.
Similar situation. But what has even made it worse is the lack of transparency in the way the government is trying to handle
the crisis.
This power crisis. They tell you they are exporting some power. And the Minister of Energy came to Parliament to update us on what was happening. Because people have complained that you can't manage this crisis without giving people information. You tell people that, okay, you are going to be road shaded for about 12 hours. And then they realize that actually it's not 12 hours they're being road shaded, it's 15 hours. Now, that has got a very serious impact on the economy of the country. We have got manufacturing companies. You understand?
Yeah.
I don't know what could be happening back to production. And then they get back to production and they've got no power. Yeah, big companies, Zambia breweries, trade kings who have been doing reasonably well as a local company and many other companies. So it means their production would have to be affected. Now, if you are telling them 12 hours and they end up being road shaded 12 hours of their production time, what are cutting down on labor to try and meet their costs? Because some of those machines they are using demand a lot of power, and you can't say you go to they take an option of using generator sets. You know, they also generator sets would demand huge volumes of diesel, which diesel is equally expensive at 34 kwacha. It's government's responsibility to ensure that they're doing is transparent so that people can plan. Domestic consumers can plan. These people that are in the industries can also plan. The minister was on the floor, and on the floor, he gave a breakdown of how much power they are exporting. And when we calculated, it was coming to 195. Okay? As what they were exporting. The following day, I think, or another platform, the minister was sitting with our minister, the government spokesperson. At that platform, the minister who was conveying the information said government had decided to recall 100 megawatts. And they were still renegotiating for the other 195 to be recalled. You understand? Now, if you want 100 and 195, it gives you 200, almost 300 megawatts. So this kind of insincerity is not being helpful, because yes, we have an obligation through the SADC power pool to try and, you know, cushion each other as member states. But you have to prioritize, first of all, your local your local situation. Because if there's no production, you can imagine, Bwana Zaki, the people that struggle. Right now, we should be having conversations of adjusting the minimum wage for most of our people who are failing to, you know, to make ends meet. So how do we then adjust the minimum wage when the industry where people are, where these people are working are stressed as well? So it's important that, you know, government prioritize, and then we need information properly, and then we can talk about alternative sources, as we were being told, you know, as we were being told. But you remember the conversation of our president then in opposition saying, we need to be like Dubai, where there has been no drop of rains, but lights, it's all 24/7. So those are the conversations we should be having in terms of alternative sources. We started, if you go to the Mount Facility Zone, you saw that the solar plant, yes, solar plants that were then started, we could have continued from there, because we had foreseen, we had experienced this situation we are in. It's not the first time we are experiencing this drought situation. The only difference is that government has declared a national disaster. We shall come to that later, because when you declare national disaster, there must be a purpose. And if the purpose is to try and get international support through donations, I don't think we are meeting that desire, because, and I can give you the figures that the minister has come up with as projected support. It's not even probably less than 10% of his 41 billion expenditure that is he has presented to Parliament. So that's where we are, Zach. So plans were there, and plans just need to be followed through and implemented. And as government is Chishilano, you know, those that come in must continue with certain, but and listen, Bremgem.
Yeah, your regime presenting to me is that you made difficult decisions
Yes.
regardless how expensive those
Yes.
decisions were.
Yes, because in the long run, we knew that if indeed production continued, the mining sector was, working, we were going to find a way of meeting that gap that we were giving the people. Obviously,
And
you can't, like
yeah,
I told you,
yeah.
running government is different from running a commercial undertaking. There are certain decisions that you have to make on behalf of the people that might be
Costly.
commercially illogical,
Yeah.
but they must do. I hope you are hearing me.
Yes.
So it's not you're running a company where you are saying, okay, how much profits are we going to make and what are the projections? You are looking at taking care of people's lives, the haves and the have nots, and that the country must be kept running. That's why you hear about subsidies. Subsidies are deliberate measures that are taken to mitigate the shocks that our citizens might go through due to a certain situation, like a drought, for example. You remember we buy food for the people. Other than there was power shortage, we also had to buy food for the areas where there was no, where the people didn't grow anything, southern, western, and other regions where there was no food. So it's a very interesting undertaking, and I'm happy that our colleagues are now going through that, and now they are the same language that we used is the same language they are trying to use now, but they demonized when they were in the opposition.
Yeah. Making difficult decisions, costly ones for that matter, is another, but also paying for the accrued costs is another issue, especially when you bring out the issue of subsidy, which your government at the time did actually implement much, especially on fuel. Fuel was subsidized, but the issue that came out is that you did not pay the MOCs, right? And that accumulated. Well, the figures that are coming out now from this current regime are that you accumulated to over $800 million of unpaid fuel subsidy. And so you can make difficult decisions. You must have a plan on how you will pay the cost that comes with those difficult decisions, not so?
Yes,
Did you have a plan as a regime how you were going to repay, for example, accrued date on electricity, accrued date on subsidizing fuel?
Yes, indeed. We had a plan. And that's why we made different decisions for, I'll speak about the mining sector, first of all, where we get the largest part of, the most part of the revenue.
Yeah.
That's why we wanted to make sure that's the natural capital that this nation has. And so every investor that comes to exploit that natural capital must understand that that's why the country needs to generate revenue.
Yeah.
Okay. And certain decisions we made, such as the KCM decision, was because we were getting a raw deal. We were getting a raw deal. In the meantime, we knew that the people we were working with, we were making a killing out of the asset, the depleting asset. So every government, including our, I've told you that the minister has revised his annual borrowing plan. What is he basing his payment model? It's on the revenue that will be generated from different sources.
When you say he has adjusted the borrowing plan, what are you saying?
What I'm saying is that borrowing is part of government programs to find revenue, to undertake certain programs when resources are not readily available. But you project that at some at some point you will have to find this revenue. You want to sit and open up the country so that you can attract investment, which revenue for you to to dismantle obligations in form of debt. So that's how it is. And they're saying, I'm going to borrow so much to cheaper money to pay the expensive obligations. He also has to look at how he's going to liquidate. Even if you say 7 years, there must be a plan. Where is the plan? Is how much revenue is going to generate to pay gradually. That's what happens. So that's what I'm saying. We must make all those that are coming as investors, the mining sector, especially, because that's where we generate most of the revenue, to make sure that they give us a good deal. You understand? So if you are going to forego $1 billion, which should have been paid by an investor, there's this debate that has been around one mining in entity which was to pay, and then they are left off the hook. And you want to chase the smaller, tax payers. We are supposed to get the revenue to pay these obligations. And like I told you, some of those decisions we made to part away with certain investors was because we realized that we were getting a road deal. So at the end of the day, you borrow and you must have a plan to repay. So it's the way things are done. But at the end of the day, the issue of, you talked about the issue of subsidies. Many countries where you find that there's stable food prices, they subsidize production in agriculture. And we have done fairly well in the recent past in terms of subsidizing production in the agriculture sector. Programs you see as farmer input support, deliberate programs to ensure that production is sustained. And that's why you, Wanazaki, were able to buy a bag of mini meal at an affordable price, because someone at the point of production was being subsidized. And this happens in many countries. And if our colleague, Mr. Mutoro Piri, the minister responsible for agriculture, had listened to us, we probably could have avoided this crisis that we are facing.
Listened to you, what were you saying?
What we were telling him is that he needed to prioritize the areas where rainfall is granted. The change of weather patterns points to the fact that there are certain regions like the north, up north of Apla, going northern, Chinga, going eastern, where, rains, and Copper Belt, part of Copper Belt, and northwestern, where at least rains are granted. So you can't come and just say, okay, we are removing these farming inputs from these regions without looking at these factors and take to regions where you are not sure.
Is this the reason why you were being accused? You were concentrating on other regions with regards to inputs and neglecting others, and you were seen to be tribal or in input distribution? Was that the reason?
That was a narrow way of analyzing the way farming inputs were distributed. And those who were making those insinuations didn't pay attention to these factors. And when Honourable Banda started rolling out the E-voucher system, which now the Minister of Agriculture wants to implement without caution, these are the factors we were looking at. How can you help farmers where we know that
favorable and conducive,
and favorable, and then we looked at aspects of connectivity, because for any successful E-voucher system to work, it depends on the connectivity of the area. So the ministry is for Mr. Mutati, Honourable Mutati, becomes very key. How much connection? And now with this power deficit, most of the gadgets here, even what you are using here, depend on power. So even those gadgets that will be used to redeem the E-vouchers cards for farmers will depend on power. Now, even when we said certain areas were to remain on conventional method of distribution, these are the factors that informed us. Otherwise, Mr. Mutoropiri would have found 100% rollout of the e-voucher system if they were, had it been for these teething problems and these challenges. So we told him to do the right thing. We left about 1 million, slightly plus, about 1,035,000, if I'm not mistaken, farmers on the Facebook program. They've maintained the same number. Okay, and unfortunately, they've had to graduate certain farmers from the same number who were not ready to stand on their own. You understand? You just come and say, oh yeah, from A, B, C, you have been on this program for you are no longer to be on this program. What they needed to do, we keep providing even options for them. It's not that we just condemn. We told them that they needed to link the social safety net program, which is under the Ministry of Community Development, so that those viable and vulnerable farmers were migrated to that system. Because at the end of the day, the packs that are given under that system, the social safety net program, farmers, you understand? And these bands are the ones that have been growing the food that you and I eat. Most of the commercial farmers that are in maize production, for example, grow it for export, grow it for feeding the animals, and that kind of thing. So they graduated farmers who were not ready, and what that ended up were inputs in MEDAS, you know, those local measuring tins, you know, so that they don't come and share the little food. They say, okay, each one at least can grow something. And you have seen the reduction in terms of production the last 2 seasons. Now, doing that, they also make another poor decision of exporting what they found in the reserve. I told you that we had an experience of these droughts and partial droughts, and from that we learned lessons that we needed to accumulate stocks. Yes, like the president was saying, preservation of food was the way to go. And now, I've heard the president saying, yes, hunger is biblical, but not the hunger which Mutoropiri created by making poor decisions. So, again, to try and get fertilizers in farming inputs from those areas where we had drains, and you can imagine where people were sharing fertilizer and MEDAS, they had drains. And at least they've just grown something enough for themselves to eat. And then you go and say, no. If you don't say, oh, that have grown, you're not going to receive input. Who does that? Who does that? He has come up with another program which they are saying you are going to give credit to people. The people that can only get that credit are the civil servants with income. Because I don't think a bank will go and give my poor widowed mother, who is a vulnerable but viable farmer, a loan for growing maize. We have even heard of winter maize. Now, we are talking about winter maize. At the same time, you know that the water resource is becoming a challenge every other time. And to do irrigation farming is not cheap, sir. Bwana Zach. So we need viable programs that will be understood by the farmers, not to wake up today. There's no consistency in the policies in the Ministry of Agriculture. It's the same thing in the energy sector. We need policies that should inform decision making, coherent decisions. Because when you just say, okay, now we'll start buying solar, no, you are selling solar, the solar panels and what the gadgets that go with solar panels are expensive. Why? Because there's no proper policy deliberately to ensure that people are cushioned. No, stop burning charcoal. How do you stop people from burning charcoal when they have got nothing else to fall back on? How does that work? You start chasing people in the compound. How many people in our compounds, those that are in the category of the have-not, are able to even think of solar? The easiest they can think of is charcoal. Amarasha, evaishba, abalanda makombonyo. So, ama policies today panga ngana tukwata crisis. If we have coherent for people to understand and appreciate, both in the energy sector and in the agriculture sector. Yesterday, the Minister of Agriculture was berating, no, from 32 districts, we're going to have 72 districts. How sure is he that those districts are well connected in terms of towers, ICT for people to redeem those vouchers? It will just create another problem. We commend the Minister of Community Development to listen to us, and listen to the complaints of the people. When we said that decision to start paying people social cash transfer or using mobile phones was not tenable, and the reasons were given to her. And good, and I must comment, we must acknowledge where people listen and make decisions that out of what you advise them. She listened. We said, apart from just lack of connectivity in many areas, there was also this issue of distress levels.
Yes.
The people that we are talking about are old people above 65.
They can't read.
Are visually impaired. They can't read. And they can't even use the phone. What it will mean is that they will depend on other people to do transactions for them when they're using the phones. And in many cases, may just end up getting swindled. So she listened and she went on the ground and verified these facts. And we at least can commend her because she also acknowledged that there are many people that were graduated from the FISP programs without being ready. And that her ministry is trying to do something to try and absorb some of those numbers. And that's what we were saying. Those are the proposals we are making. And so if someone is able to listen like that, we give them kudos. But the challenge we have with our brother at the Ministry of Agriculture, he seems to be a know-it-all. When you tell him, he seems to have just, you heard him even advising us to be agro dealers. How can we offer oversight functions and be the ones that are trading? How? So let him just have consistent policies mu agriculture. Yeah, kwati bashima farm baumfwa na barabe na bashikweta in different areas mwabarondorera bweno baishiba. Not now. Farming season will be beginning in a few months' time. Bashima farm tabeshibe na bakafora mufundoni banga tabeshibe. How many farmers are going to be on loans? How many farmers who got loans and are affected, they have not produced due to the drought? And then revisit these programs in order for us to be food secure, in order for people to have hope that they will be now buying, they will be able to afford the bag of minimum, which has become expensive. Even the social safety net programs that they are putting in place, the Minister of Finance announced of 400 kwacha. How much is a bag of mini meal, Zach? If you can help me, how much is a bag of mini meal now? 25 kg. Huh? Those Mapamela, which we were told were not going to be anywhere, are the talk of the day, every day. We who are people's representatives, every time you wake up in the morning, you look at the phone, the messages that are coming are just, oh, it's tough. Na iko saba Zaki, abantu to put just food on the table. So government has got a responsibility. And if they don't get it right in the agriculture sector, believe you me, it will be very difficult. To come back to what I was saying, I spoke about these things when you hosted me last time. And I told you that the decision they had made was going to affect the people's livelihoods. It's the same thing in the energy sector, both in electricity and fuel subsector. I told you that, yes, it's easier to look at some of these things and say, date aside. I mean, look, every Kongole, Ishibare Kongoresh, Wakashisha Bambi Wakaripila. So you can't just be saying no, and I heard the Honourable Mtoropiri being insincere and saying that no, where? Buying of maize is always has always been in the budget. Has been always in the budget. And where there's been an overshot, supplementary budgets just like this have come to Parliament to say, no, we had projected to buy maybe 500,000 metric tons of maize. Now we have ended up buying 800. And money is appropriated. So you can't come and lie and say, no, those are the challenges we have. And if you see, when he's engaging fellow MPs, they find it very difficult to believe him with whatever he's presenting. Because it's not true that he offloaded all that mess in order to pay farmers. It's a lie. Because the budget lines are always there, which we approve in Parliament to procure grain under FRA.
Your successor in Honourable.
Yeah, but before we get
to
there,
yeah,
you were talking about fuel. I was talking about. Look, I was here, and there was my Honourable Minister who should have been who was a shadow cabinet minister for energy, because he was chairing the energy committee. My brother, without anything personal, Honourable Nkomo. He was here.
Yes.
And I was here when he was making assurances that no, people of Zambia should not worry. Ngabaisura from pipe waters. Wakasegura chabe chija pipe chatazama, which was designed for, you know, moving crude oil, commingled, which was ending up in dollar. Nishis fuel ya cheaper. I came here and I said, it's not true. It's not possible. How? Because they're just moving diesel. And you have heard the complaints from the stakeholders in the OLMCs who have complained about how nominations are being made for some people to use that pipeline. Now, if I take you back, that pipeline used to bring crude. That crude which was being refined at Inden would then give the people of Zambia 8 products. 8. Diesel, petrol, kerosene,
jet fuel,
HFO, some products that were ending up at bitumen, and some of the products that were ending up at nitrogen chemicals. You understand? Now, you do a pipeline to move only one product, diesel, to cover probably 70% of market share. The other, diesel, is to move by road, and petrol by road, other kerosene by road, and these other products all by road. How does it play? The my brother and colleague was here chairing the Committee on Energy. And we have got reports at Parliament. Then a turnaround strategy to try and keep that refinery running. Because when Dr. Kaunda and his team decided to open that refinery, they were aware. They had started by bringing finished products from the ports using those marole, you know, Fiat, that 3 months. So they had gone through that. After baya na kuitali bayalomba ko itazama pipeline udawi no pipe kukula. So when we were proposing to our colleagues that, look, we could have been looking, yes, it requires heavy investment to try and install a hydrocracker at Inden and expand the volume of the pipeline. Because that hydrocracker would have seen us even get crude oil from countries like Angola, nearby here. And for me, those should have been the plans to embark on going to the future. Because obviously, the refinery was getting old and it needed some serious attention. So that is the issue of bringing one finished product in diesel. Today, I'm back.
But under
like I told you,
under your regime, the Indeni shut down completely.
It didn't shut down. It didn't shut down. It was shutting down for routine maintenance. It was shutting down for routine maintenance. But it was not completely closed.
Now, let me move to Public Order Act quickly before I take phone calls. Now, let me just quickly remind you, our listeners, that this is the Thursday edition of The Burning Issue. And Honourable Stephen Kampyongo is our guest this morning. He is a Member of Parliament for Shiwang'andu and former Cabinet Minister. I was coming to your successor, who has on several occasions described your regime as brutal, especially in as far as managing or implementing the Public Order Act is concerned, that particularly the police were badly managed under your leadership and that they became brutal. And further on, you even recruited cadres in the police service. And this was also confirmed by the IG, that a lot of Patriotic Front cadres were recruited in the police. Hence, what we are seeing and witnessing today, a lot of unprofessionalism as far as execution of duty is concerned. Literally, this blame is being heaped on you because you were the Home Affairs Minister.
You see, there'll be time for people to compare and contrast. Okay? The people of Zambia themselves will be able to compare and contrast. Bwana Zaki, recruitment of police is guided by regulations. Adverts are done, and we went further to decentralize the recruitment because numbers, due to resources, have always been limited numbers in terms of recruiting because you need resources. Okay? So, adverts, I don't know if you have ever seen an advert running to say we are now recruiting Patriotic Front cadres or UPND cadres in the Zambia police. Have you ever seen that?
No.
If you have not seen that,
but you can still recruit people.
No.
Not really that they should be.
Those are public exercises, Bwana Zaki. Public exercises. And you see people being recruited and running. So those are public institutions. And like I said, recruitments are guided by regulations. And the training facilities that are there under the Zambia police are public, are there for public to see. So when citizens are invited and the qualifications are listed, that's what they follow.
There's no room for underhand methods in recruitment.
What underhand methods? Because the people that recruit are the police service themselves. There is no party official who goes to recruit and say, oh, unless it's happening now, I need to be guided. The people recruit are police. And they have got regulations on how they follow. And those who fail, they have got so many assessment programs to do before they can even list down who could be successful recruits. Varapishamo process. Kutuka wamono muntu ngali physically fit. Those who fail out on the way. And even when they start training them, because the training is rigorous, others fail on the way. So to try and apportion is just leaders who are supposed to create confidence in their institutions. You want to be there permanently. Both my successor, just like I was there, my tour of duty ended, their tour of duty will end. They will leave people. I wouldn't want to be among those that will start apportioning blame on them and say, no, when you were IG, you recruited people when you were put from the retirement. No. We shouldn't look at public institutions like that. So I wouldn't be petty and start, defending and there are regulations that guide the recruitment of officers. And I've always said, you cannot start calling your men and women in uniform as junkies. It's not fair at all. There are procedures of dealing with indisciplined officers, just like in any other profession. Human beings are human beings. Deal with their mistakes within the regulations. That's why we have got even the Police Service Commission. It's to look at the work of the police and deal with disciplinary matters. Because they're dealing with individuals. And in any profession, people who make mistakes. And coming to the enforcement of the Public Order Act, it's the same police. It's the same police.
Do they
Now,
work,
do they
work under instructions? I mean, your name kept coming up the time you were Home Affairs Minister. Kampyongo has sent this. Kampyongo has instructed this. Kampyongo has instructed. Is there such a thing as the minister can instruct the police?
It's just a misconception. You can't micromanage the police, Bwana. The minister cannot micromanage the police from the ministry. Even my colleague who's seated there now, I think he can attest to this. That ministry has got more than 19 portfolio functions, more than 13 institutions. So if you are going to sit and just focus on the police, then you can't run a ministry. You can't. Because police work day and night. And where you go how? And that's why they are structured in different command layers. So the command makes decisions on the operations of the police and how they undertake matters. In any case, they are not the end unto themselves. That's why whatever they do in enforcing the law end up at the courts of law. You understand?
Mm.
So how can you, who is not going to stand in the door, who is going to tell him, oh, go and arrest Zach? How? So those just are misconceptions. But like you said, if today, I told you, remember what I told you about the cadarism? I
Yes.
said this requires a lot of work and not just simple lamentations. Recently, you have been able to see how the same Public Order Act has been implemented. You have got Marudas running around Mandevu, where a ride was to take place, and you are crisscrossing, the police are crisscrossing with the machete carrying cadres on top of buses. They're running with Marudas and these ZDF vehicles full of police crisscrossing. I think that is that's the best than in the past. Deck there, where you are the former head of state, and his family being interrogated. Cadres in a procession, because a procession is managed under the Public Order Act. Someone must notify that we are going to march from here to Zesco, okay? And the procession must be marshaled. And there we were, people insulting, oh, and the police are there watching. People were terrorized after the burial of some UPND official. It had to take the president to come and give them for those people to be arrested. In Mukushi, civic leaders were beaten. UPND civic leaders, councillors, brought the daylight, but they are cadres. In Cabo here, you saw. So, you see, there's a limit to which you can blame your predecessor. And where you can take the mantle and start doing what you are supposed to do. It's as simple as that. So for me, it's just important that the Inspector General of Police must do the right thing. It shouldn't be seen as if it's such a success to allow people to have a rally, which happened in Kitwe. That's a normal way of living. I remember when we had restrictions of movement during the COVID time, we still had to meet with our colleagues, even in the opposition. You remember how people were having rallies virtually. So that was for everyone. It wasn't limited to
the party government.
To the party government. You remember we had to find mechanisms, ways of the UPND then to have their management committee meetings where they chose leadership under discussion. So at the end of the day, people compare and contrast what could have happened in the past and what was wrong in the past should be wrong. What was correct in the past should be correct now. And I've always said in Zach, even here, appearing before you, I've said there are certain things we could have done better. And under my watch, if there's something that I've acknowledged that we could have done more, was to do with the violent cadreism.
Yeah.
That I've always admitted. That we could have done more to help the president, because he was always lamenting on this issue of violent cadreism. Has it ended? The answer is simply no, because we have seen in the recent past. So we collectively have to put effort in curbing such vices from recurring.
Honourable Stephen Kampyongo, Member of Parliament, and of course Shiwang'andu, Member of Parliament, former Cabinet Minister, is here as our guest on today's Thursday edition of The Burning Issue. I'll open phone lines now on 0955 221515. That's the number you're calling us on. And remember, you can send your messages to 0761 912493. Let's take this call. Good morning. Maybe you can have your headsets on. Good morning. Your name and where you calling us from? Your line is breaking. We can't hear you properly.
Hello, Bonazak.
Yes, good morning. Your name?
Fortune Chisenga within Osaka.
Fortune Chisenga.
Yes.
Yes, Fortune, please go ahead.
Kampyongo Valela Ndefia Mukachongo in studio. Number one, they are the causal of what Zambia is going through today. Number one, they are the ones they have failed. So now, it's ikiripota kwa watu wa Kampyongo ngakuri abantu ofiro kwikala sio kumona kwa UPND nisi mwana ya pampe na balungu, because you kill this nation and you wapo mle encourage abantu wale uchamana chakula temake finity kula temake finity. So na sure wa Kampyongo just because you want to kukwelea pampani chenturera
Nandira chani? Narandira chani?
Mwachano kwa ati abazali povare kanya abantu kula control miti.
Yawe mwaipusha shikuru umfweni mwaipusha nga mwachitatu mwachumfa bwino chisungu ntina milondorera muchibembe fona chilanda. Mwaipusha.
Thank you, Fortune. We'll take some more on 0955221515, and this is the Thursday edition of the Burning Issue. Stephen Kampyongo, Shiwang'andu, Member of Parliament and former Cabinet Minister. Good morning.
Good morning, Zaki.
How are you today?
Dr. Proud from Garden.
Dr. Proud, please go ahead.
Today, Zaki, I have announced candidate for UPND in Shiwang'andu in 2026.
You want to stand in Shiwang'andu?
Honourable Kampyongo, be it in Ukwa, be it in whatever political party. Because in
of course, Honor.
Shiwang'andu,
I'll come and campaign for you.
There is no industry where Kampyongo brought a party to see that helicopter which was driving in our vice president with his own cadre, coming that helicopter at the time of campaign. Again, I want you to present the Kampyongo. You know how to move on the roof of Sun FM in the Copper Belt, where there was a government. Again, you quite a person in the police over his own farm. You killed a person in the name of Kamasama. What are you wanting? There's some president you wanted to embalm. He was cheating people. He was calling his own friend Haina. So you want him to allow him to come, a person who calls posting newspaper to their friend members is disparate to what they are. Because his own worker, they are desperate. When you go to church, no money in the pocket, because posting newspaper was closed. Under your eye, Honourable Kampyongo, you are my friend, but in the politics, I'm going to challenge you in Shiwang'andu.
Thank you. Thank you, Proud.
Just tribalism there.
Thank you, Proud. Thank you, Proud, for that. And of course, let me take another one on 0955221515. Good morning.
Morning, Zach. How are you, my brother?
Very well, thank you. Is this Brother Chisha?
Exactly. You are speaking to Brother Chisha in Lusaka.
Please go ahead, sir.
Honourable Kampyongo, how are you?
Very well, Chisha. Thank you.
I'm going to have a challenge. I'm proud.
I'll be his campaign manager.
Yeah. Very laughable. Anyway, let me go ahead and register my thoughts over today's issue.
Please.
Honourable, you are explaining issues very, very well. The problem we have with UPND are people you cannot advise. The anger we are passing through today as Zambians, we are not supposed to suffer the way we are suffering. If they listened to you and other leaders from Patriot Front, you left mails, 20 of them. They went on selling mails to other countries. And then today, they are coming to us with scriptures to say, no, anger is biblical. After selling our mails. Who does that? The only challenge at the moment, Honourable, these leaders in offices, they don't listen to anyone. No wonder they are failing to perform. And I can assure you, Honourable, if you are going to, even if you continue offering checks and balances to them, nothing will work out. You know, when you are working with people who are calling their colleagues today empty things, and then tomorrow they are calling you to say, no, come, let's work together, we find solutions to the problems we are facing. So, all what we can just simply say is that, Honourable, keep on get united as opposition. So that come 2026, these people are supposed to go just. We have suffered a lot, Honourable. They promised us to say, no, you're going to have 3 meals a day. Today they are quoting scriptures. We are not going anywhere with these leaders. And finally, before I go, Honourable, I have a question. I've heard one senior most leader from State House saying, no, now time has come for opposition to be allowed to hold rallies. Is it legal to allow you, opposition political parties, to conduct rallies? Or it is enshrined in the constitution of Zambia that you have a right to conduct rallies? Or what you need to do is to notify the police. Is really to get a permission from them and notifying the police one and the same. I need a clarification on that one, Honourable. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brother Chisha. One more on 0955221515. Good morning.
Good morning.
Radio, please.
Okay, yeah,
Just-
sure. The president himself, like Edgar Jagwalungu, he was once the president of this nation. And when you go and campaign lounge, you are not telling people what new thing you want to come and do, apart from mentioning the name of the current president. Because you need to tell us to say, no, we did this, it was our mistake, but now we'll come back in this way to want to do these things in this way. But looking at the way you are campaigning, I think it's just based on hatred, not necessarily like you want to come and do something good for the Zambian people. Now, when you look at the way you are saying things the way it is like things the way you are talking very well. But looking at the implementation of things when you were in power, it was a different thing. So now, what are you promising people to say when you come back? What are you going to say? Oka is just a name, but the same people who have been in UPF, they are the one who is leading that party. So meaning, it will be more waste than the UPN itself. So now, let's give the chance to the current president to work, to do his own job. Because all this is suffering in the name of PF, because PF, you are the one who squandered everything. So give him a chance to work. He has got a vision for this nation. The president, Edgar Lungu himself, he was clearly saying he doesn't have a vision. It's the reason why we went, because you borrowed a lot. So now for us, we have agreed to say, let's go this way. We suffer in order to heal this, and in order for us to have good economy for our children. We are not looking at you. We are looking at our children, your grandchildren. That's what is happening right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Would you like to respond to some of those?
I'll start with the very last one.
Right.
He's saying, I feel the pain. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
And you were given
Yes. Given Mayumbelo.
It needs to know that we came from the opposition to form government, and we are back in the opposition.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Penny is talking about. It's important that we are well informed. And we're going further to talk about President Lungu. President Lungu is not here. And I'm not talking about what President Lungu. I've talked about issues here.
Mm.
So if you are call, and let's engage on the issues that I've spoken about here. It makes life easier. You have not spoken about Oka. We are speaking about issues here as they are happening.
Mm.
So praise singers, be objective. Listen to the message first. If you have to engage me on the issue I'm raising here. And you have talked about giving chance to the president. We know he's the president of the country. You understand? And we respect him for that. It doesn't stop us from offering
Checks and
options,
balances,
checks
yes.
and balances. That's our role. Unfortunately, you have to get were given. So don't make me start commenting about things I haven't commented on here. You are saying I'm talking nice. Let's focus on what I've discussed. Ask me, then I will be able to explain to you so that we are on the same page. President Lungu is a citizen of this country, and when he comments about something, hold it in that context. So here, you are engaging me on some issues, and I would like those who are intending
We stick to
call,
that.
We stick to that.
Right.
But Chisha, I understand you basically talked about the issues as they are, but we wanted me to clarify on the issue of rallies. Rallies a right for everyone, just as processions. For those people that want to do the procession, a public gathering, which is outdoor in nature, where people want to engage other people. And then people judge. It's people that go to the rallies who are able to judge whether the message they have been given is good enough, is inspiring enough, and whether the promises are being given is giving them hope to make decisions. It's up to the people. So rallies are governed and are regulated by the Public Order Act, which, like you have rightly said, which requires people that want to have a public rally notify the police about their intention, and the police have a responsibility to protect those that are having a public rally against anyone who would want to disrupt that. So that's how it is. So Vachisha, what briefly I can say about that issue. You talked about anger being bibirico. I think I'd spoken earlier on it, and I said that doesn't leave Toro Piri to do the right thing. He has to do just the right thing. Put policies in place, which policies will guarantee production. Abantu baishwa bashima farm. Valima. Dr. Proud, who has declared his intention to stand in Shiwang'andu, I'll be your campaign manager, sir. If you come with a program to bring industries, although you haven't mentioned the industries that you want to bring, you are most welcome to Shiwang'andu. But you need to know that Shiwang'andu was just an ordinary constituency. It's now a full-fledged district, and it's still growing as a district. I'm indebted to the people of Shiwang'andu who have given me an opportunity to serve them for 3 consecutive terms. It means there's something they've seen. Proud. You have seen the turnover of members of parliament. Many serve 1 term, they are out. But if people are able to give me this privilege to serve them, this period they have given me, I'm very grateful to them, and I am indebted to them, and I will strive to try and meet their desires. The other things
on that issue of Shiwang'andu, you were quoted in one of the tabloids having praised so much on how CDF has helped or has brought development. Can you confirm that was your statement?
I don't know about that statement, and in the absence of the tabloid, it will be very difficult for me. But what I do remember is that I engaged in a conversation.
Okay.
I think I was called for a program at ZNBC where we were talking about the challenges in implementing CDF, and I was acknowledging that CDF over the time our colleagues were there who saw the need to have it, but maybe I'll get back to that.
Right.
Let me just finish responding to the call.
Great.
So we're proud raised a number of some of them were allegations and that unfounded, and I must know that some of these matters could be before the courts of laws, and some of them were in the courts of laws, and they were adjudicated upon. So he should know. But he's welcome to come to Shiwang'andu. I know he's a regular caller on many stations. Yeah. When I was coming, I think I must have heard him calling on Hot FM, where there was a coordinator disaster management. And so whether that has made him proud, whether that has made him popular enough to come and stand
challenge you,
is another issue. Yeah, but he's welcome as a Zambian. He's welcome. He's a colleague of mine. I would want to see what he's doing now. I saw him cooking tea using newspapers. I don't know if that's what he's doing as a result of road shedding, which road shedding I think wasn't there in the past, because we never saw him cook tea using newspapers. So it's there are many people who are going through those challenges. He shared with us.